Elementary School. I want to thank you for coming out tonight. Just a little bit of background. This is something that we typically do in January. We do an overview of the kindergarten process, and after having a really informative conversation with our colleagues from the Birth to 5 organization, we received some feedback, and among that feedback was getting information out more timely and ahead of as people are trying to make their decisions. So that's the purpose of our information session tonight, is to give a very broad overview. I'd like to introduce my colleagues who are here this evening. I think a lot of the faces may be familiar because may have older siblings who have gone through this process. But as I said, my name is Mary Ellen. I'm the principal of the Horace Mann Elementary School. To my right is John Maynard, who is the principal at the Winthrop. Ms. Allison Donovan, who is the principal at the Lincoln. Mary Beth Moranto, who is both our host and the principal at the Roosevelt. I know that Donna Rosso is very familiar to some of you. She's the director of the Franklin Early Childhood Center here in Melrose. And on behalf of Jenny Kordick, who could not be here this evening, she's the principal at the Hoover Elementary School. We'd like to welcome you. So we're going to switch off tonight and go through some slides and share some information. We would like very much for you to be thinking about what questions you may have so that we can gather them as you're leaving, possibly have a conversation with you one-on-one, but also incorporate them into our next set of publications and presentations, because if you have the question, likely somebody else does. Okay? So a little bit about us. Melrose is comprised of a number of elementary schools. As you can see up here, this is our present arrangement of kindergarten classrooms. At the Hoover, we have 2 kindergarten classrooms. At Horace Mann, we have 2. Lincoln has 4, the Roosevelt has 4, and the Winthrop has 3. And our class sizes are roughly between 18 and 25. And I really want to emphasize, this is our present scenario. This is where we stand presently. If you hadn't noticed, there's a lot of building going on in the city. So this is our present scenario in kindergarten programs that we offer. So there are some requirements for kindergarten. They're not unlike other districts for public kindergarten attendance. And the first is you must be a resident of Melrose. As a matter of fact, you are asked to produce documents that confirm, validate that you are in fact a resident of Melrose. Your child must be 5 years old by September 1st. Your proof of residency, as I referred to, if you go to our website, there's a whole list of items that you can produce to prove your residency. Everything from a lease to a mortgage statement, utility bills, and this is the one piece of thing that I would say to you. Many of us pay bills online. You need a paper original bill, and you can't get that overnight. So when you're thinking about your planning, right, and getting your registration documents, get on the phone with Comcast, get on the phone with Verizon. You know how helpful everybody is, right? So those don't come right away. So you need an original. So that's a little tip that came over years of doing this. You also need an original birth certificate with the raised seal. Again, you're not running into a lot of places and running right out the door with that. You need an original. We cannot accept a photocopy. So again, when you're preparing your registration materials, you want to have everything in line. And lastly, you need copies of your immunization in your physical, your child's rather, the child who's coming to us, the immunization and your latest physical. Those are the requirements for kindergarten. That's it. 5 resident immunizations and an original birth certificate. That is all you need to come to kindergarten.
So I'd like to just give you an overview of your child's day, some nuts and bolts of what they'll experience. All our schools start at 8:10. There might be some variance in terms of when students enter, but it's an 8:10 start. And the school day ends at 2:22. And that's not a typo, it is that school time. 2:22 is the actual time that we end our day. All the schools have a early bird program of some form. This is fee-based, and there's opportunities to sign up. You will receive information. Depending on the school, some schools start at 7, of schools might start at 7:30, but this is an option, because we know families are very busy. Many families have two parents that are both working. These are some of the options for you in terms of having childcare before the start of the school day. That is available at all 5 of the Melrose elementary schools. Education Stations is our after-school program. Now, Education Stations is run independently in the sense that there is a separate director, and then there's a site-based director at each school. However, it is provided at all 5 elementary schools. It goes to 6 p.m. at all 5 elementary schools. One of the great things about Education Stations is there's a lot of flexibility. So I know many of you, if this is your first time entering a school system, and you start to think of the logistics, okay, Tuesdays and Thursdays I work late, what are my options? Education Stations is a great resource. There's consistency across all 5 elementary schools in terms of the programming that is offered. There's flexibility in that you can select which days and how long you want your child. So for example, you might want your child to be there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That is doable. You can sign up for the week and then not be involved in the following week. That's an important piece I know for you all to know. There's sign up online, which is another great resource. So if on that weekend you need to make some decisions and planning for that week, as we all know that happens, that's available through Education Stations. And as I mentioned, it's a program that's offered at all 5 elementary schools and is taken advantage of at all 5 elementary schools. Snack and lunch. I know this is also something that's on our mind in terms of what is offered. Students bring a healthy snack to school each day. It must be peanut or it must be nut-free, okay, for the snack in the classroom. Students may either buy lunch or bring a lunch. That's your choice. Menus are available. Our lunch programs at all 5 elementary schools is run by Chartwells. That's a private entity that does provides the school lunches. Students are issued a lunch card, and that's done in the very beginning of the year when they have usually right after they had their photo day, their photos on that student lunch card. Many of these things are taken care of right at the beginning of the year, but we certainly want you to have a lay of the land in terms of lunch and what your child in terms of eating. The lunch, as I mentioned, the snack needs to be nut-free, but all 5 elementary schools provide an area where a student can bring in nut products to eat for lunch. So they can bring a lunch that it has nut products and eat it in the cafeteria or all-purpose room in the case of my school. But the snack that they have in the classroom has to be nut-free. Okay? Each cafeteria will have a nut-free table, and lunch is 20 minutes. And don't worry, folks, I know oftentimes I have conversations in the beginning of school, 20 minutes is not enough time. It is enough time. Some kids do adjust, some kids like, certainly talk, and are eating, it's the first time they're in a cafeteria or a lunchroom, maybe with 80 other classmates, and that's exciting. And in the first few weeks, all they're doing is talking, but very quickly they adjust to the 20 minutes. Oftentimes what we find, some kids also will have a pretty hefty snack. If the lunch is at 11:30, they might have quite a snack at 10:30, and they're not that hungry during the lunch. But I want to make sure that you're aware of all of that. Lunches are supervised by paraprofessionals in all 5 elementary schools. I know, speaking for my colleagues, we're also often in there. Sometimes it's the best part of my day is to have lunch with the kindergartners, or first graders. So that is a well-supervised area. And we're checking in. Even though I may be eating, I'm checking, making sure that Joey or Tommy or whoever is having their lunch. And if they're not, why not? Recess. Recess is an important part of the day for all of us. It is offered, there's 20 minutes of lunch and then a 20-minute recess time after lunch. Teachers supervise on the playgrounds, and that's consistent across the district. And also, we were having a conversation earlier, sometimes we're out there as well, depending on the weather, right? But we do like to get out there. And this is an important rule in terms of the colder months. We can't get around it, we live in New England. Hopefully we won't have the same winter that we had last winter. But nonetheless, if it feels like, and that's the important term, feels like 20 or below, the students have indoor recess. And that's a policy that is district-wide.
Okay. Again, I'm Mary Beth Moranto, and I want to talk to you a little bit about things that go on outside the school hours. We talked about education stations, but if you do not necessarily need that program, there are also many school clubs. Students who are in education stations can also participate in the school clubs. What we've listed here is just a very small segment or a sampling of school clubs. One school may have Lego clubs, one school might not. The clubs are run by teachers. For example, we have one teacher at the Roosevelt School who loves cooking, and she does a cooking club, but this year we have not had a drama club. Maybe next year we will. So it's offered by the teachers with their interest and what the interest is of the students. So although we've given this information before, understand that there are clubs at each school. However, the clubs themselves might be a little bit different depending on the staffing. Volunteering. This is a great way to keep connected with your students and with your children. And at this time of their life, they want you there. That's going to go away very quickly. So take advantage of it. What you want to do is register with the Bridge, because anyone who comes into the building to work with students needs to have a Corey check. And the Bridge is the organization that will do that for us. The most important thing, you may say, you know what, I work full time, I doubt I'm going to be able to get in, so I'm not going to do that. All of a sudden, there comes a field trip. And you think, hey, it's on Friday, I can get Friday off. But you're not Coreyed. So the most important thing is no matter what, whether you think you're going to use it or not, we really encourage people to be Coreyed. So if that opportunity does come up suddenly, you're already in our system. The Corey lasts for 3 years. If you are Coreyed in another district, you still need to be Coreyed here. Or through another agency, you still need to be Coreyed through the Bridge. Let's see. Teachers organize volunteers on an as-need basis. There are some teachers who definitely use a lot of volunteers. There are some that do not. It can depend a little bit on the teaching style. It can also depend on the makeup of the classroom. And still at the beginning of the year, we want the students to feel comfortable and depend on their teacher, and also depend on their own independence. So it might not start right away. Once the students are used to the environment in school, we can start bringing volunteers in. Some parents will approach me and say, you know, my child's having a really tough time orienting themselves to school. I think I'll volunteer. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's not so good. It can be difficult for both of you, but we've been through a lot of this, and the most important thing is that you have conversations with the teacher and with the principal and understand what your child's needs are and how you can help them. Every school does have weekly volunteers in the library. Our libraries are managed by volunteers. There's a library coordinator. You can set up a schedule. And in addition to you volunteering, if you've got grandparents at home or aunt or uncle that are very involved in your children, they can volunteer as well. It's not just left up to the parents. So I think it's having extended family involved is just as important. Again, online, the Bridge information is all available online on the school websites. All right, communication. It is the goal of the principals and the district administration to keep you as informed as we possibly can. We have many opportunities for you to know what's happening in the school. We start off with PTO e-notices. There are members of the PTO that organize an e-blast, and they collect all kinds of information that you may be involved in PTO, you may not, but you're going to understand what's going on in your school. You're going to be able to connect with some of the things that your children are saying when they come home. A principal's newsletter or blog. In my case, mine is connected with the PTO news. I have my own section, so it's sort of one document. Some principals will have a separate document, again, coming directly from the principals. Principal Twitter accounts. What goes out on our Facebook is duplicated on our Twitter accounts. So there's information for you. Each teacher has a newsletter on an Aspen page. As your child moves through the Melrose Public Schools, Aspen is going to become your best friend. As you get into the middle school and the high school, you're going to talk about grades, you're going to understand a little bit more. Right now, it's more about the communication and what your child's doing at school. So it's really important to step out of your comfort zone if you are, and poke around in Aspen, and also speak up if you're having trouble. Because I found some parents saying, I couldn't get on, so I gave up. And in actuality, it wasn't something that they had done, but maybe the site wasn't quite right for that teacher. So don't hesitate to, I encourage you to actually poke around and see what's happening. And you're going to realize that the dialogue that you have with your child at home is going to be much more meaningful, because it starts right away. What did you do in school today? I guarantee you that is not the case. So you can go on and say, gee, I heard you were talking about wind and windsocks today. Tell me a little bit about that. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Here we go. So it really kind of helps to build the dialogue that you're having. Like us on Facebook, and subscribe to the school websites. All this information is here. If you're in a bind, you can always pick up the phone. You can always send an email. We have time limits where we expect both ourselves and our teachers to get in touch with parents. And also in an emergency situation, simply call the school. But there are certainly lots of opportunities for you to get a lot of information. All right, who's in our building? Well, we'll start off with the high qualified teachers. In order to work in Melrose, we are seeking, recruiting, and hiring the most qualified teachers we can find. That can mean a teacher who has taught for 15, 20 years. It can mean a teacher who's taught for 2 years. We're very pleased to say we have a nice blend. And both teachers on either end of the spectrum work and support each other. One has a lot more experience, one might just be coming out of courses and is fresh and ready to go. We work together, and I think you find that very rewarding. We have paraprofessionals. The paraprofessionals are staff members who are in some of the classrooms, special ed classrooms with students that might have a little bit more need. They're in some of the kindergarten classrooms, and they too, as paraprofessionals, take part in our professional development. We do trainings for those folks. They really feel a part of the team. So we value them, and many of our teachers couldn't do what they do without them. That being said, as you know, with budgets being the way they are, we have received information. The paraprofessionals are provided to us through a federal grant. And every year, as you can imagine, every grant is scrutinized. We are already hearing that legislation is not confident that this grant will be awarded to us again. That is certainly a concern, because at that point, we would have to make a decision. Do we pick up the salaries for all the Melrose paraprofessionals, or we do without? That's a big concern, and you want to kind of keep your ears open to that. And if there's anything that you can do to help us out, we'll certainly reach out to have you do that. We have school psychologists and occupational therapists. Occupational therapists, a word OT, helps a child with some of their writing and their fine motor skills. We have speech and language pathologists. We have physical therapists and licensed music, art, physical education, and health teachers. Again, those teachers, just as much as your classroom teachers, have had to take rigorous courses, they've had to pass MTELs, and they are highly skilled in all the areas that they work. So your students are definitely benefiting from what Melrose is recruiting.
And in these next few slides,
There you go.
I will talk to you a little bit about curriculum and exactly what your students will be learning in kindergarten. I think a lot of parents are concerned maybe that either their child already knows how to read or write, or maybe their child might not be ready for kindergarten, they might not know all their letters or things like that. And you don't really have to worry about that. Kindergarten is going to be ready for you regardless. So all of our teachers work to deliver best practices in instruction. And one of the things you'll see across curriculum areas, whether it's reading, math, or writing, is a workshop model. And what that means is that the teacher delivers some instruction to the whole class for very short amounts of time, the amount of time that we know a 5-year-old can sit. And then the students break off into smaller activities. That way they're able to be more active. And then teachers can meet with those small groups and really focus in on what they need. So if they're a group that is ready for a challenge, they can target that group. If they're a group that needs more support and more reinforcement in other skills, they can focus on those skills. So you'll see that across curriculum areas. Additionally, writing is something you'll see across the curriculum, even starting very early in kindergarten. They will all be writing. They write as part of their literacy block, and then they also write as part of math, and in science and social studies, they're recording their observations. Some of that can start off as just pictures and labels, but it's amazing to see what they do as the year progresses. And the biggest thing is that we want, for this young group of kids, we want as much of it to be as hands-on as possible. Kids doing as much of the work as possible, with teachers really guiding and facilitating the learning. So small group instruction, as I said, with the workshop model, we do some stuff whole group, but knowing that they're little and they can't attend for too long, and that there's a wide range in front of the teacher in terms of what they need, we try to make sure that most of the instruction is happening in a small group. That could be anywhere from 1 or 2 students, if they have similar needs, up to 6 or 7 students in a group. We know then that the teacher can really focus on what it is that they need. Our teachers do a lot of assessments with students to determine everybody's skill range, and then to really focus that instruction so that they're moving those particular students forward with what they need. So in kindergarten, our students have a 90-minute literacy block. Sounds like a very long time for a 5-year-old. However, like I said, it's broken up into lots of different pieces. So at the beginning of the year, that full 90 minutes is something we build up to. The whole group instruction is going to start out much smaller. It's going to be things that kids are already used to enjoying, listening to stories, singing songs, reading poems, participating in group games or activities. And then teachers work with building independence. So they'll teach kids a game that they can play independently that focuses on a literacy skill, or a math game that they can do independently. And they really work on building up that independent time, because when our kids are able to do some of that work independently and teach and work with each other, then that frees the teacher up to really focus on those small groups. So the 90-minute literacy block, during that block we use our Reading Streets curriculum. So that's a new year for teachers. It is full of really amazing children's literature, lots and lots of nonfiction. So it has topics that kids are really interested in and excited about, usually based on theme. So there's kind of a giant theme for the unit, and then kind of smaller themes across each week where they dig into the concept. And it really focuses on high-level vocabulary. We want students to be learning But it's interactive, it's fun, and engaging for students. And then the part at the bottom broken up about the 30-minute whole class lesson. Like I said, that 30 minutes is something we build up to. In September, it doesn't look like sitting down for 30 minutes with 25 5-year-olds. Good luck with that. But it does build up, and they build that stamina for being able to pay attention for a longer amount of time. Here's an example of some kindergarten writing. So, like I said, students are writing from the beginning of the year on. In the beginning, that might be just the first letters and sounds that they can hear in something and go in matching an illustration or a picture. And then they go as far as they can across the year. So they'll have a writing block every day where they're practicing writing and writing about topics that interest them, such as princesses. Our math curriculum follows a similar workshop model. So we use the Envision curriculum. It starts off again with a whole group lesson piece. All of our classrooms have smart boards, and there is an interactive video piece that the kids watch, and it stops and has activities that they might participate in on the smart board and reinforces the skills. A lot of the math involves hands-on things for them to count and work with, and it's really reinforcing all the early numeracy skills, really getting them solid on understanding base 10 and our number system, so that as they move up in the grades and they're working with larger numbers, they have a really core, solid foundation in mathematics. We know that some of the students will come in at different levels, and so again, it's that whole group and then breaking out into small groups so that if there are kids who are ready for our higher level skills, they're able to meet that need as well.
So part of our orientation process is we do 2 rounds of tours at our building, and our first round of kindergarten tours actually begins next week. If you look up here on the board, you can see that Lincoln and Winthrop are scheduled for the 17th at 5:30 and 6:30, about 40 minutes. And Hoover, Horace Mann, and Roosevelt are on the 16th, 5:30, 6:30, and 7:30. So you can see we've kind of scheduled them, so if you wanted to hit multiple in one night, there's some travel time in between there. And as I said, they're about 40 minutes, 45 minutes. The purpose of these tours, typically what we do is an opportunity for you to see the physical space of the building. You may not have been in the buildings, but it also provides the principals an opportunity to reiterate what is common among the schools, consistent curriculum, consistent before and after school care, things that are consistent and uniform across the district. This is something we work very hard at. Our feeling is if a child leaves me tomorrow and starts at Winthrop, he or she should not miss a beat. They should keep on moving right along in the curriculum and not miss a beat. However, there are some unique things to our school that we'd like to share and celebrate. Let you see how some of the spaces are different, how we use some of the spaces, and just you can put eyes on. These tours are for adults, they're not for students. These are parent tours, if I could just encourage that for you. And then we're there to answer any questions that you may have. So that will be starting our first round. Our second round of tours is typically after our January presentation.
That's right, yeah.
Like I said, this is the first time we've done an overview in the fall. We will repeat again in January. And then usually the second or third week in January, we do tours again.
Approximately after, really the 3rd and 4th week, if I remember correctly.
So the registration process, there's some feedback that we received and want to hope to clarify something around this. We have an online pre-registration period. That begins in February. It's an online pre-registration period. You go to melroseschools.com and kindergarten has its own tab once the pre-registration window opens, and you can click on there and there's a number of forms that we ask that you fill out. There's a specific student registration form, and there's a registration window in March. So you pre-register in February, And then you register in March, and that's at the Parent Information Center, which is at our central office. So if you're familiar with the high school, Melrose High School is in the basement, the bottom floor, we like to say. I don't want to tell our superintendent she's in the basement, the bottom floor of the high school, and you can access that independent of the high school. You can go in and you can register. Some pointers. Number one, print out the pre-registration form and bring it with you. Otherwise, you get there and you say, didn't I fill this out already? Right? You're going to be given a packet, so print it out and bring it with you. So that's good feedback to get. Okay. The other thing that we want to share with you is, when you are registering for kindergarten, it doesn't matter, you want to be within the registration window. You could be the first person to log on, or you could be the last person to log on. It doesn't improve your chances of getting your first choice school. Let me say that again. As long as you register within the registration window, that's your first line of defense. So if I register first and you register second, I'm in no better position than you are to get your first choice school. Does that make sense? So I think what has happened, and the feedback that we receive from our colleagues, is people get to the registration day at Central Administration 2 hours early and are standing in line. Don't waste your time, you're busy people. You just have to be within the registration window. You can stand in line for 20 minutes or 3 hours. You are in no better position. Everybody that registers within the registration window is on the equal playing ground. Does that make sense to everybody? And we like to say that because we're a society, we're like, well, if I get there first, then possibly things will fall in line for me. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that. Why is that important? If the registration window is open for 12 hours, not everybody has to get there at the first hour. You can come and be the last one in the door and wait 5 minutes, or you can come and be the first one and wait 3 hours. Do you see what I'm saying? So you can spread your time out and use your time more wisely. But print that pre-registration packet, bring it with you, bring all your documents, and when in doubt, there's this wonderful page that you can look at. It has all kinds of information.
Yeah, so I was just going to add, that's what it looks like. I don't know about you folks, but we all go to a lot of different sites. What does it actually look like? This is a screenshot of last year's student registration. That's when you go to melroseschools.com, that's what you want to be looking at and finding. You can see below there are several PDF forms that you can print out and will have registration information. It has not been updated yet, but this will be available come the first of the year when we start the registration process. But I wanted you to have a sense, what am I looking for? And that is the screenshot.
Just can I add one thing?
Sure.
If your child is at the Franklin, you still have to register. There was some confusion around that. You still have to register if your child is at the Franklin for kindergarten. Doesn't matter where you go, you have to register.
So this is this is essentially a checklist in terms of the registration process. I do want to just reiterate a couple of items that are important in terms of the registration process. As you can see, birth certificate, original document. I don't know if you're anything like me, it takes me at least a day or two to actually find the birth certificate when I go through my filing system. So please be thinking about that. You need the original. Current proof of residency, and I know Dr. Cobb mentioned that in terms of making sure it needs to be original documents. Okay, the online piece does not work. You need original documents in terms of the proof of residency. And a current physical exam within the last 12 months in terms of immunization and physical. And so that's an important piece in terms of your documents.
In Melrose, you are asked to pick your top 3 schools for your personal preference and choice. So it is not purely based on where you live. They are not neighborhood schools. We have school choice. So everyone needs to choose 3 schools. You cannot choose the same school 3 times. That would be considered an incomplete application. You can't just pick 2 schools. You need to pick your top 3. And then from there, these are the criteria that are used to determine placement. We do try to give people their top choices. But if we're not able, like this past year, we had a greater increase of kindergarten students. So we had to go through this list of criteria to determine placement. So the need for a specific program or facility. So for example, some of our schools have an elevator if there was a handicap accessibility issue. Or some of our schools might have programming for certain students with special needs. So if your child fit into a group that needed a specific programming, that would obviously take priority. Timeliness of registration, this does not, this just means outside the registration window. Anytime within the registration window, you're all even. If you did not choose to register until June, then your choice would be after all those people who registered in the timeliness of the window, as I know you all will, seeing that you are here tonight in November. So that is outside of the registration window. Presence of older siblings already in the school. We do try to keep families together. We don't go out of our way to inconvenience people. And then proximity to the school does come in closer to the end, so that we aren't trying to make people go across town either. So those are factors that are used in the ranking of making the decisions should not everybody be able to get their first choice of school. And next steps. So this is early for us to be doing this presentation, but there will be plenty more opportunities to learn more about kindergarten in Melrose. We have our tours next week, and then in January we will do this again, basically, another kind of overview presentation. We'll gather questions from you tonight that you might want answered in that presentation, and have another round of tours and open houses. And then in March and April, there will be kindergarten screening for students. So students will be called in for individual appointments and meet with kindergarten teachers to go through the screening process. So there'll be many steps along the way.
Well, I want to take a minute to thank you, because as we were gathering as principals and doing something for the first time, we were thinking, I wonder, is this going to work? Is anyone going to come? Are we going to? And I'm just so impressed with what I'm seeing here tonight. And you've really made us feel very comfortable, because we want to be able to give you this information. We want to give it to you the way you need it. And I think it's so important that now you've started to think about these things. And remember, if you forget a little bit, it's okay. You're going to get it again, and there's going to be opportunities for that. Another thing, Mrs. McPherson, who works in the office, is going to be thrilled. And she's going to be thrilled because we've promised her. She has to work that registration week, no matter who's there, no matter what. So the way she's described it is pure chaos and mayhem on Monday, and then she sits all week and just twiddles her thumbs. And it's true, it's difficult, and we're just telling you, rest assured, as long as you are in that window, you come the first day or you come the last day. That's your choice. It is the same. And we all told her that we're gonna help you guys out. She's gonna be busy all week long. So we thank you. Also, I know you might have some questions. Mrs. Rosso has index cards and some pencils and pens. What we're gonna do is please let us know something that you thought was valuable about tonight. We are all reflective, just as all educators are. What works, what do we need to tweak, how can we make things better? So please, fill out that card with what you liked. Let us know if you have some other questions. Any information that you feel that we need to get more of, we will build it into the January presentation. And I think it will be even that more exciting for you and more useful for your valuable time. So I want to thank my colleagues. We worked together for quite some time on this slideshow so that it wasn't too much, but yet it was enough information. And I hope we met your needs. If we did fall short in any way, please fill out a card and let us know. You can just hand them to me on the way out. And keep your eyes and ears open for more information, and we look forward to seeing a lot of you next week at our buildings, and then again in January. So thank you very much, and we appreciate your time. Thank you for coming.